Welcome to the XFO Intelligence Podcast. Today, we're going to turn our analytical lens towards the United States, examining its current state, but not from an internal perspective. Now, we're looking at it as an external observer, studying a complex system at what feels like a critical inflection point. The insights we're presenting, they were generated using the deep augmented thinking method, which allows for a really unique pattern-based view of global systems. To the international community, the United States in 2025 presents a compelling and frankly concerning paradox. On one hand, it remains the world's undisputed economic heavyweight, right? With a projected GDP of over $30 trillion. Pensive. Yet, beneath this surface of immense power, there are clear signals of deep systemic stress that threatens its long-term stability and, by extension, its global role. We are observing a nation that is somehow simultaneously powerful and fragile, innovative and yet stagnant. From our outside analytical viewpoint, the core issue, it doesn't appear to be a series of isolated policy failures. Rather, the evidence points to a system that has become fundamentally misaligned with its own foundational purpose. Let's first examine the fractures in that foundation. Economically, while the American system produces extraordinary aggregate wealth, its benefits are distributed remarkably narrowly. Observers note a clear shift away from a model of, say, broadly shared prosperity toward one that aggressively concentrates wealth. And this leaves a majority of workers with stagnant real wages. The data is, it's stark. The U.S. has slipped from 9th to 12th in global competitiveness, its once envied infrastructure shows visible signs of decay, and investment in R&D is declining relative to its global competitors. To an external analyst, these are not just numbers, they are symptoms of a system no longer optimized for the well-being and flourishing of its broader population. Concurrently, its democratic foundations, long held up as a model, are showing visible erosion. An extraordinary 84% of its own citizens now report that their democracy is in a crisis or facing serious challenges. Trust in the federal government has plummeted to a historic low, just 20%. For observers of democratic systems worldwide, this is a significant warning. It signals something far deeper than mere partisan disagreement. It appears to be a systemic breakdown where institutions designed to foster unity have become, instruments of division and paralysis. This domestic situation inevitably creates a paradox in America's global leadership. So while the United States remains a primary financial contributor to UN peacekeeping and possesses unmatched military strength, its legitimacy and its moral authority on the world stage are increasingly questioned. Global leadership, after all, requires both capability and credibility. When a nation's domestic institutions are seen to be failing their own citizens, that credibility naturally diminishes. Insightful. The most critical insight, and this comes from a systems thinking approach, is the profound interconnectedness of these issues. They are not separate problems. Economic inequality erodes democratic participation and trust. That erosion of trust then weakens the institutions required for effective global leadership. And a diminished global role, it reduces the capacity and will for domestic renewal. It is a self-reinforcing feedback loop. This pattern repeats itself at every scale of society. It's a fractal-like quality, where the same stresses manifest everywhere. The financial insecurity and time poverty felt within a single household, for instance, they're mirrored in the social decay of a community, the dysfunction of national institutions, and the intense polarization of the entire country. So, from this external systemic perspective, what does a path to renewal look like? Our analysis, powered by deep augmented thinking, points to 4 fundamental principles for transformation. And I mean not mere reforms, but a genuine reinvention. First, rebuilding the trust architecture. Deliberately, this goes beyond simple transparency measures. It requires a fundamental redesign of the relationship between institutions and citizens, one built on authentic participation, radical clarity, and consistent reliability. Second, reorienting the entire system to optimize for human flourishing. This would involve a paradigm shift in how success is measured, moving away from abstract aggregates like GDP and toward concrete human development indicators, things like health outcomes, educational attainment, and economic security for all. This is a philosophical regrounding, a recognition that an economy's ultimate purpose is to serve its people, not the other way around. Third, embracing adaptive rhythms. American institutions, they often seem trapped in these rigid industrial-era timeframes that are just ill-suited for 21st century challenges. A renewed system would need to build in mechanisms for periodic transformation and adaptation, learning from, say, the balance of stability and innovation found in natural biological systems. And finally, a principle of designing for connection, not control. So many of the current dysfunctions stem from fragile top-down systems designed for control. A more resilient and effective model would prioritize creating the infrastructure for connection. Networks that allow for trust, resource flow, and collaborative problem solving to emerge organically from the system itself. Of course, translating these insights into action, that's the central challenge. Such a renewal can't be imposed from the top down, nor can it arise purely from the bottom up. It requires coordinated multi-scalar action across all levels of society. It demands strategic patience and, perhaps most difficult of all, the courage to let go of systems and practices that are failing, even if they were once successful. So, what would a renewed America look like to the rest of the world? Well, it would be a nation whose global leadership stems from a renewed moral authority, not just from its military might. A nation whose formidable economic dynamism is matched by a commitment to shared prosperity and social cohesion. This renewed America would draw strength from what has historically been its greatest asset, its capacity for reinvention. Pensive. The world is watching to see which path the United States will choose. Will it continue with incremental adjustments to a system showing clear signs of decline? Or will it undertake the radical act of transformation and in doing so create a new and relevant model for 21st century governance and society? The answer to that question will have profound consequences not just for the American people, but for the future of the world. This has been an XFO Intelligence Briefing. Now here's a question we'd like you to think about. From your vantage point in the world, what is the most significant consequence, positive or negative, of the trends currently unfolding within the United States? We invite you to share your feedback and observations in the comment box below. And if you found this analysis valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth intelligence briefings. Thank you for listening.